introduce Noah Dunn, who is going to talk to us about GDIOCSpider. I'm going to learn as much as all of you will.
Cool. Thank you, Jeff. So this is GDIOCSpider or GDIOCSpider or GDIOCSpider or however you want to combine those letters and sounds. It's up to you. Just out of curiosity, for those that are in the room, quick show of hands, who's in the cyber industry? Anybody in the cybersecurity? Nope? Okay, cool. This is going to be all new then. I'm not big on bios, but this is kind of my spiel. I work at a company called Palo Alto Networks. They make firewalls, but we do a lot more nowadays. That's just what everybody, if you've heard Palo Alto, most people associate that with the firewall. I'm a fake redneck, which means that I live in the middle of nowhere, but I do not drive an F-250, so I'm fake. And yeah, my big specialty, the things that I really like doing, I like refactoring problems, so going into code bases that are really messy, cleaning them up, making them faster, making performance better, cleaning up costs, and also nowadays I deal predominantly in GCP, BigQuery, Dataflow, and Python. I'm also a recovering turtle rancher, went south. Anyway, so what is GDIOCSpider, GDIOCSpider, whatever you want to call it? Essentially, it's an open source Python IOC hunter, since nobody in this room knows what an IOC is, because y'all aren't in the cybersecurity industry. An IOC is basically an indicator of compromise. That's what that stands for. So for those of you that have ever seen CSI Miami, right, when people go to a crime scene or whatever, they look for clues that a crime has been committed. So they look for evidence that something's happened. Blood, fingerprints, a gun, you know, these are the clues that we use to build a case to try to figure out forensically what's going on. In the cybersecurity industry, our investigators do the exact same process, except they look for these things called IOCs, which are things like IP addresses, hashes, file indicators, things that would indicate that someone has been somewhere they shouldn't be and doing something they shouldn't be doing, right? And so what this particular tool does is we actually don't have a lot of mass scanning technology for this. We have big applications that will pick up these IOCs that are coming over a network and firewalls and stuff like that. But we don't really have ones for G drives, at least not that I could find when I started writing this thing. Google Drive is both a place where a lot of investigators will look for clues and also where they will store some evidence that they find across. And so there's really no way right now to analyze or do any sort of influence on this. So this tool is pretty heavily configurable. You can change around a bunch of settings. It's pretty lightweight. And it comes with this independent module in the case that maybe you don't need the Google Drive functionality of it. You can still use it to type indicators and figure out what kind of indicators you're dealing with. I have the GitHub here. I'll have it presented at the end, so don't worry too much about that. And the big use case is the why. So going on what I just talked about a little bit earlier, we kind of have two groups of these DFIR, or that stands for digital forensics, incident response. So digital forensics, like I said, those are those investigators that are going in cyberspace and looking for clues. These DFIR consultants really have two things. One, say someone knows their G drive got compromised. Hey, my G drive got popped. People were in it doing really suspicious things. I would like to be able to scan it quickly to see what suspicious things were done, right? The other piece is, well, maybe on my personal G drive, I've collected a lot of documents and evidence, and I want to know, hey, I forgot where this thing was, or where did I find that clue at? This can run through your personal G drive, rip through and see what evidence you may have collected over time. And so how does it do this? I wrote out this quick little flow chart that kind of goes through the steps conceptually. Most of this is going to be the demo that I'm going to show at the end because, quite frankly, I think those are more productive in general than just reading to you. But essentially what this does is it connects to the G drive, iterates over every file in the G drive, extracts IOCs it finds in the files, and then it'll type those into a category that represents what that raw data is. It'll output it to a terminal, and then we'll save it over to a spreadsheet. You have two main options to interact with G drives. This is pretty common with any sort of Google API applications for those of you that built any sort of Google application. We can either use OAuth, which is the one where you essentially, it sends over a token, you validate with your username and password, it gives you the token, you can use it. Those are most often used for personal accounts, so these would be a case where you were on your own G drive looking through it. Then there's service accounts, so if you already have, like for example in my line of work, we have a lot of big mass integrations with data flow pipelines or things like that where they parse all this data. We already have this set up, so using a service account is a lot easier for these types of things. Same process, super configurable. It's just how you want to go about it, right? And then we obviously have these file paths that I've kind of listed here. I'll show you that in the code, but those can be set at any time. Now, in terms of the actual extraction part, you know, we're scanning through G drives. How are we actually doing an extraction here? Well, again, I wanted this to be heavily configurable because in my line of work, we found out over the years that, hey, it's really hard to get things super specific if you're not doing it dynamically. You kind of have to give this free form because things go wrong, right? And so I've kind of provided these parameters. We're starting with the first one, ignore files and folders. If there's something that no one's supposed to look at or a folder that, hey, this is my private stuff that people aren't supposed to see, we can block that off using this list. We also have only search files, which is the opposite of that, where, hey, I have this very set of files or folders I need to look at. Please only check these guys. MIME type files to scan is just which files are we allowed to scan, so text files, Python files, JSON files, whatever. And then the very last parameter is the permitted delimiters to check against, which is basically, do we want to care about new lines? Do we want to care about colons? Do we want to care about, how do we want to split our lines up in the data, basically? Out the rip, I have provided support for all of these types here. If you see these and you go, hey, I want X, Y, and Z, please feel free to do it. I'm lazy and I don't want to do it. So feel free to add and submit an MR so I can take a look at it. So those are the types of files we support, but I didn't really get into the IOC typing yet. So what types of data do we support inside those files? And like the previous set that I showed, we also have more configuration here. So do we want it to be a strict regex? Do we want it to be a loose regex? Is there any IOC type that we don't want to look at? For example, passwords, if you put in a massive password dump list, can take a lot of time compute-wise. Maybe you don't care about that for whatever you're trying to do. Keyword file paths to use is just a list of those text files. If we're looking for like a set of specific phrases or words, we can search explicitly on those guys. And then defanging before export, again for the non-security folks, which is all of you. Defanging is essentially the process of making it so you don't accidentally click on URLs. So you block off URLs and make it so you don't click on them and they blow up. If you fang them, that's when you replace everything so that you can accidentally click on it. And again, in pure data format, we want to store fanged, but we don't want it to be available to the user because then they can click on it and then click on a malware link and get infected. So we don't want that to happen to people. So these are the types we support. I'm not going to read these off to you, but these are all the different types of IOCs that are reported. These are pretty common in my line of work. These are the ones that people care about because they tend to lead the most amount of evidence. And then in terms of final output, we have two places the final output goes. It goes directly to the console when it prints out, and then it also is available as an export that you specify, and then we can analyze it on G Drive and Sheets and whatever your preferred OS is. We can look at it there. Here's a sample of what it looks like, but again, I'm going to run a demo so we can take a look, assuming the demo gods are kind today, which they should be. And this is what it looks like when we load it into a CSV file. So, okay. Real quick before I jump into the demo, these are some ideas that I have for future work, things that I would like to do. So I would like this to be in a data flow pipeline. This would allow you to scan hundreds of G drives. I've done a lot of work with data flow in G Drive. It makes everything way faster. I would like more supported file types and more IOC types. This doesn't account for all the edge cases. I've already caught some doing some brief testing that I've patched out, but there's obviously going to be some weird IOCs because I deal with those at work and I know how bad they can get. And yeah, I just want increased regex fidelity because quite frankly, regex can be very slow depending on what you're looking at. So let's get in the actual exciting part, which is not the slides, it's the demo itself. So the GDIOCSpider tool is just a GitHub repo. That's all it is. I'll pop out real quick just to show you, but it is installed right there, GDIOCSpider. Again, whatever you want to call it. Let's go ahead. I'm going to try the one-hand console command. Should be okay. So real quick, before we dive into it, actually, I'll pull up my VS Code and show you what the config looks like. Config.json is located at the root, and so it has a bunch of things, the things that I was describing earlier, like the search exclusion list. We have the IOC type restrict mode. These delimiters we're checking against by default, the type of files that we're allowed to scan, which is all these guys right here, which matches the list that I had in the presentation. I have some of these garbage folders that I don't want it to look at because they're loaded with stuff that I don't want the thing to look at because it's just bad. And yeah, we have the path to the token, the path to the credential token, and then we're trying to use, this one we'd be using OAuth because we have this set to false, and I'm just using my personal. I don't need a service account for this, we're fine. So that's what the config looks like. You can pull it down, you can modify any of these values, and then you can go ahead and run it. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. Funny enough, because of the way that I'm assuming the public college Wi-Fi network works, it actually takes longer for it to connect to G Drive than to run. So you're gonna see this hang for like 10 seconds and it's gonna look like it's not running. and then it's just going to explode the console. Normally, it actually just runs in live time because it connects immediately, but I think there's a firewall that it's actually checking against here, which is super, I haven't seen it, and it's kind of fun. So we're just going to run it, and we'll kind of analyze the results together. All right. So as you can see, I just have this installed with a PyProject TOML. This is just installed as a wheel, basically, through pip. And GDIOCSpider, we pass in 2 parameters, config file, so that is the config that I just showed you, and then we pass in the output file. That's just whatever we want to save it as. In this case, we're just going to save it in the same directory. We don't need to get fancy. And we're going to watch the firewall hang for like 10 seconds for whatever reason, and then it's going to explode, and we're going to go back through, and we'll look at what the output looks like in console. There you go. So it hang for 10 seconds and then just blew up. So going back through the console, because this is the cool stuff. So it says beginning of the configuration, and it validates with you that it's running those. If these were file paths, it would print those out to the console. And then it says, hey, I saw this, but I'm ignoring this. So you can actually debug using this to make sure that you didn't actually exclude something that you weren't looking for. It first starts off by listing everything that it was available to find. So it lists off every type of file and what it found, and its relative directory to the root. So it found a GDoc file, it found Gsheets, CSV, et cetera, right? Then for each of those, it's going to iterate over. Sorry, my mouse pad's being a little touchy. Here we go. And it says, hey, Noah, I found this PDF file, and I downloaded temporarily to this, my data dumpster here, right? And basically how this works is it does download an instance of every file. It's not running and streaming it in live time. That was a deliberate design decision, because when you're analyzing massive files, it's actually faster to download, read it, and delete it. There is a data security thing there, so if you have for example, I work with a lot of customers and clients that cannot have their stuff downloaded, that has to be streamed, or you have to have a retention. This does handle all retention policies that revolve around deleting, because as soon as it runs it, even if it fails, it will delete all the files that it saves. So it doesn't ever really save it long term, it just downloads it quickly, rips through it, deletes it. This isn't going to some random C2 or some random Russian asset site. You don't have to worry about that. It's all pretty open source. So it will list off, after it downloads the file, it'll list off every single IOC it finds, which again, this is just mostly for debug, or if you're just doing a quick look. This isn't really intuitive to look at super fast unless you're just doing a classic Control F and trying to find a specific one. But it'll list off, okay, I found an IOC Noah, here's the type, and then here's what the value looks like. For you non-security folks, again, this is what a defanged URL looks like. All we do to it, in this case, you can use any technique you want, but you can't click on this like off the rip, because it has these brackets. So I can't just go in here and go, oh, look, malware, and then click on it and download it. It won't work. When it finishes up and goes through all these files and prints all that stuff out, it'll put a little summary here. So it'll say, like, for each of these, total IOC count, we have 5 IPv4s, 3 domains, et cetera. And then at the very end, at the bottom, right, it'll show you that it deleted it. And then finally, it'll tell us that we're done exporting. Now, if we go here, sorry, I'm trying to one-hand this. So if you notice, we now have indicator data.csv present there, and that we can check to make sure that has data before I go and upload it. Okay, so we now have data. Yep, we have 9.8 kilobytes. Come over here. I'm going to pop over to my Google Drive. This is the one it just scanned, actually. And so what we're going to do to take a look, just because it's easier to read, is, oh, shoot. I hope I didn't just, let's not open Discord in live time. Sorry, y'all. Here we go, fat fingered it. All right, let's go ahead and upload the CSV dump, and we'll take a look at what it looks like. I'm gonna put the mic down for 1 sec so I have both my hands. All right, there we go. So let's take a quick look at some of this data. One thing that we probably want to do is we want to see the count indicators, the ones that actually are appearing the most frequently, because those ones are important. So we can go ahead and sort this A to Z, and I need to do that the other way. Sorry, Z to A, because we're going. There we go. So what do we got here? Fakepayments.com appeared in delete me GDocs, and we're like, hey, what's fakepayments.com? So what we can do is we can actually go back to my G drive real quick and pull up that GDoc right here, delete me GDocs. That was the file that it said it was, and it told us where it was at. And if you notice, here's an example of like a very faked incident report that maybe a incident responder would deliver to one of their clients. So they said, hey, dude, we were looking at your infrastructure, and we found some super sketchy stuff, and here's what happened. So we have an overview here. And that particular IOC that I mentioned, which was right here, fakepayments.com, right? If we go over here and we keep looking down, sorry again, here we go. In the initial analysis statement, it says the phishing emails carried a subject line of urgent payment overdue and contained a link to fake payments. So now as an incident responder, I may have forgot where I put that in, across all my reports, across all my stuff, but I know I was looking for that somewhere. I ran this and oh look, boom, right there. It extracted it directly out of the thing and told me exactly where it was at. Likewise with all these other things, emails, right? So like same delete me GDocs, janedoe.company.whatever. If we come up here, janedoe@company.com, it was found in the file. So this helps us two ways. One, if we're scanning through these reports, we can see it and we can see, you know, what it outputted and where these were at. And two, say for example, I was a bad actor, I was in somebody's G drive and I was just dumping file information with emails or passwords or usernames, and I was writing those into a G drive and trying to figure it out. It would pop up here the same way. So it's kind of a dual use case for if you're the good guy or the bad, or you're looking for the bad guy. You can use it either way. That is, I really only had prepped about 20. If we had any questions, does anybody in the room have any? This is my, sorry, let me pull that back up. That's my LinkedIn. Feel free, that's the best way to contact me professionally, is my LinkedIn. I respond to all my DMs, so if you get interested in this or you're interested about cybersecurity, the industry, anything like that, I love to talk shop. That's also my GitHub if you want to download it and try it for yourself. It's available, again, like I said, it's a Pi project toml. You can install it with pip install. The instructions are there, posted on the GitHub. I'll actually pull that up real quick since we have just a minute here, and I'll show where the setup guide is, but there's a little video up top that shows it running, and then the screenshots I had here, and then there's a very nice little guide that I wrote up here, mostly for myself because I'm the type of guy that will build a project and then come back to it a month later, forget how the frick I installed anything, and then I'll just immediately forget how to do anything. So these are mostly for me, but there's a setup guide available if you need access to that. For my folks in the room, is there any questions? If not, that's okay, and thanks for coming to my talk and listening. Oh, like drop. Right now it's only integrated. The question for the camera is there any integration with Dropbox? Right now it is purely G Drive, but Dropbox would be, again, a tool that they don't have out there right now that would be very good use. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's actually a really good. And I'm kind of curious, like, how much of this would overlap, because I think you could actually just build out a couple functions to integrate with that, because most of the logic, like I said, the whole IOC parsing code is completely separate, and it's basically an independent package. So I don't think it would be terribly difficult to extract. You would just write the wrapper code. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah, that's a good. I didn't think of doing that, but that's a really good. The question was, did I think of adding a link into the row so that you could just directly click on it to access it. That actually is a really easy change, and that would be something, because I'm actually, funny enough, it is really funny. I didn't, so absolutely good call out there, because funny enough, I'm actually storing the file ID, which is all that you need in order to access. So integrating that particular. That would be pretty trivial, but yeah, that's a really good call out. That's smart. I like that idea. Anybody else? It's okay if there's not. Do it. And what you can really, real quick, since we have 5 minutes, I'll show you something real quick. What you can do, because you guys are not, y'all are not cybersecurity, so you might not be aware of this. If you are, sorry for preaching to the ignorant. So in the cyber industry, there is this, which, oh shoot, I'm downloading whatever. This will look super sketchy on the wire. They're probably going to come audit me later. So rocku.txt is the largest recorded password dump in history, plain text password dumps. In my industry, if you are a penetration tester or if you are someone that does any sort of incident response type deal, Rocku is the first place you go to start password cracking because it was on a plain text website that was storing all in a SQL plain text backend, right? And so they grab the dump. Now it's used in cybersecurity. If you have any password on there, it's sketchy. So what you can do if you want to audit your own stuff to make sure you're not storing maybe some of your passwords is you can use the functionality I built out here in the keyword file pass to use. You can add in a link to, for example, put a text file on your desktop, all your passwords that you commonly use, right? Save it, add that there, run it against your G drive. It'll scan across all of it. If your password's in plain text anyway, it'll tell you where your file's at, which one has it in it, and then you can go look at it and see why it's there. I'm Mr. Do as I say, not as I do. So what I'm telling you is that I'm a security professional, but I don't always listen to security. That's all I'm getting. So I'm speaking for myself over here, but that's something you could do if you wanted to audit your own stuff. Again, another use case. You could definitely do that. It'll scan it. Yeah. Thank y'all so much for listening in. I appreciate y'all. And yeah, have a good rest of your Pyohio. Thanks for letting me present. Appreciate you.